Well, I'm here at the in the entryway at the Sweet Home Evangelical Church. It's Pastor Brian, and I got my dad, Pastor Ron, with me. And we are in this time where people are wearing face masks, and it's kind of it's global pandemic. But I was thinking back. We are getting to the 40th anniversary of last time we were wearing face masks. And you were pastoring back then.
I was.
What was that like trying to pastor a church?
Well,
May 18th, 1980. What happened that
May 18th, 1980 was a Sunday.
Oh, fun.
Yes, it was a Sunday. And I was pastoring a church in Spokane. And we came home from church and we had dinner, and third Sundays of the month, or second Sundays, whatever that would be a third Sunday of the month, sure. We held a church service at kind of like a senior center, a retirement center, not too awfully far away from where we lived. And so that started at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. And we were there and we finished. And when we came out, the strangest thing was happening across the sky. There was a line across the sky. This side was sunshiny, it was blue, it was beautiful. And on that side, because we were heading towards home, we were east of home. And as we came towards home, we noticed there's a line in the sky that's just black. Just black.
It's kind of like when you see a weather front coming across.
Oh, no. It's worse than that.
Worse than that.
No. It was like closing the blinds.
It was night and day.
Yes. And by the time we got home, that line was closer and right over the top of us. We thought, what in the world is happening? So we got in the house, and very shortly, got dark, didn't it? Now, see, you were a freshman.
I was in 6th grade.
You were in 6th grade?
Yes.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Okay. 6th grade he was in.
Yes.
And by the time it was time for the sun to go down, it had already been dark for 2 hours.
Right.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was dark, dark. And then it started to snow.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't snow. It was Mount St. Helens.
Yeah.
Coming to land at our house.
Right there.
Well, not just our house, our county. Well, the whole eastern half of the state, It just landed. And it was like snow. And what I remember is it stopped falling. They called it ash, but it was heavy, remember?
Yeah.
A shovel full of it was heavy. Yeah. Very heavy. It was like pure Portland cement powder.
Yeah.
It was dense, very dense. And just before it would have been dark, about that time in the evening, it started to get light enough that we could see. Remember that? And then the air was still just white and misty and foggy with this stuff. But the worst of it had come through. And we looked out on our lawn, and there it was.
Yeah.
It was, there was snow this deep everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Just everywhere.
Kind of like the inside of my fireplace right now that needs to get cleaned out.
Except this stuff was all white.
More dense.
It was like powdered glass.
Yeah.
And it was pure white, well, slightly gray, a little off-white. And then when cars went to drive down the street, the stuff just billowed up. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. That's why we were all wearing masks,
Yep.
because they said, that is just ground up glass. Don't get it in your lungs. It's not coming out.
I remember being off of school for a week.
Yeah.
And
the world shut down.
Yeah. Oh. And now you were able to have church the next Sunday, right? Because that conveniently happened on a Sunday afternoon after church.
So we had 7 days to get the place cleaned up. The city folks said, do not take a hose nozzle and wash it down the drain things, because it's so dense it'll just you can't do that. You've got to shovel it up in piles and pile it out there along the curb, and then they would come and scoop it up.
Oh.
And so we had a group of guys, our trustees. Hello, Sweet Home Board of Trustees. You'll enjoy this. This was a large building. It was 3 stories.
Yeah.
It was a big building, and it had kind of a top on it like a gymnasium. A half of it was kind of a dome top.
The addition.
Yeah.
The new part of the building.
Yeah, the new part. And that was built in the 50s. We were there in the 80s. That was 1980.
Right.
So, but the trustees had to get up on the roof and scoop that stuff off the roof. Not just sweep it into the rain gutters and let it melt. It kept looking like snow. No, they had to scoop it off of the roof. And so now we had piles on the side of the building that were and then we had to wheelbarrow it out and dump it. And then the city came along with dump trucks and skip loaders and picked that stuff up. But it took them about 3 or 4 days. I say them, that 3 or 4 days passed before the city discovered this stuff is just not going to go away.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
We got to haul it off.
Spokane's used to snow, and the snow will melt.
Yes.
And we're all set up for something that will eventually melt.
Yes.
But this is not going away.
No, it was not going away.
For a long time, you'd see patches of ash
piles
around
of
town.
it. Piles of it everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we had then to get the trustees up on the roof of the old part and the new part and all of that stuff in the building and then get it cleaned up enough so that we could have church on Sunday. And they said, you could see people wearing face masks because the dust was everywhere, billowing up, just ground glass, exploded glass. They figured that a cubic mile of St. Helens blew off. A cubic mile. Now figure out how many dump truck loads that is. And the heavier stuff dropped in the middle of the state, and the stuff that we got was still heavy, but it was fine.
Yeah.
And so cars would drive through it. Remember going down Division Street, and then the stuff would just be blowing up in the air, like this. But guess what? We finally got the place cleaned up.
Right.
This too shall pass.
Yep.
We'll be up in Spokane to visit Grandma later this summer.
Well, and I think about things like that, and I think about the book of Job, where Job has all of his whining and complaining, woe is me. I feel so super hesitant to preach from Job because he and his friends have all these ideas about God, and yet in the end, they're kind of all wrong. And so why would we dig into that too much? Because they've got all their whining and complaining, my life is horrible or your life is horrible, and God just comes and he says, just look at my creation. Look at these mountains. Can you make one of those? Yeah. I can make one. I can blow one up and send it over across the country
and
too.
And
he did. We have this world with industrial revolution, technological revolution, and we feel like we can control all these things, and then one tiny little virus comes along and shuts everything down. And we get to this point where we can't control everything, and God is greater than we could ever imagine. And that's that's one of the takeaways I'm getting from this is we aren't in control. You like to think you're in control of your life. I'm in control. No, you're not. No. And
so that's what a good reminder.
Oh man, So we're 40 years ago. That was a different world back then too. Cell and phone were two different words.
Yes. Cell phone was not a word.
Smart and phone, two different words.
Two different words.
So before that, I remember when you did CB radio.
Yes.
At LaBiche.
Yes, I had CB radio.
Back in the 70s.
Yes.
So we didn't have a cell phone, but you had the CB.
Sure.
So it was something where you could tell Mom you're going to be late for dinner.
Sure.
I don't know why she would think you would not be late for dinner, though, if you're out and about.
But that's a good reminder that we can't even see. It takes a really good microscope to see one of these virus cells.
Oh, yeah.
And yet it has struck our whole world to a standstill.
Yeah.
Without, with no force,
yes.
no,
and it's not just made people sick and there's some deaths here, but there's a lot of people just afraid because of this, and just there's this small thing that moves the entire world like this, and yet to imagine this is a big nothing to God, this is no big deal, and then he goes through a few chapters with Job. Look at the tree.
Yes.
See this giant sequoia tree that I made.
Can you make one of those?
Yeah. Can you? No. Don't worry. Okay. How about this? How about this? How about this? And then Job he gets to a point, and I just love that phrase where he says, I was wrong. Woe is me.
Yes.
And then he says, my ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. And he finally recognizes, I'm not going to get answers to all my questions, but that's okay because the God I serve is greater than all of this. And
well, when you think about it, 38,000 people a year die in America just from traffic crashes.
Yeah.
Just from traffic crashes.
Yeah.
And we're not anywhere close to that with this COVID thing.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
Oh, yeah. It's
so when this is all over and done with, we may be a third that many, a fourth, a half at the most, and many, a lot of people that die with COVID-19 don't die from it.
Right. Yeah.
They die of heart failure.
Yes.
They've already had pneumonia 3 times.
Yeah.
And so actually,
yeah,
you're more likely to die in a car crash by 3 or 4 times than you are to die of COVID.
Right. It's kind of like people being afraid to fly.
Yeah.
you are much more likely to die in a car crash on your way to the airport than to have the plane crash.
Yes.
But our problem is we want to be in control of this. But I'm in control when I'm driving. Well, you're in control of your car.
Until you crash.
Until somebody runs into you.
Yeah.
And it's probably better if you're not in control of the airplane. They have trained professionals for that.
They do.
I remember Dave Bernhard tell me about Mount St. Helens stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They
lived in Portland.
They lived in Portland. He had Bernhard Bakery there in Portland, and I can tell on him because Dave is in heaven with the Lord now. So now I can tell things.
10 years he's been gone.
Oh my word, Dave! I visited him in the hospital, and he told me the story about how he cleared off his parking lot. He said they told you not to spray it. And of course, a hose wouldn't be enough to do that anyway. But he in the middle of the night, just by himself, he didn't have any employees with him. He hooked up to the fire hydrant there in town.
Yeah.
And those things, that's a lot of pressure.
Boy.
He's just by himself. So he said he had the hose hooked up to the fire hydrant and had it perfectly straight. He didn't have it perfectly straight the first 2 times. And so finally got it to where it was perfectly straight, so where he could turn it on and then run up there and catch the hose and then spray off his parking lot with all of this Mount St. Helens ash. They didn't have near as much in Portland, but still, this will be easy. We can clean off the parking lot this way. So at 3 a.m. he's out there. Just don't try this at home. Don't tap into the
So this is
fire
back
hydrant.
to we want to be in control.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, my word. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I just, You know, he was such a character,
Yep.
and I visited him in the hospital shortly before he passed away, and such a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to chat with my dad a little bit since he got to pastor during.
You wanted to chat with about disaster,
Yeah, right.
and masks,
and you know, there's all these things that happen like that where people are thinking it's the end of the world too.
Sure.
And
yeah.
the sky literally is
Was
falling.
falling. The sky fell on our place.
And you know, there are events like that where we wonder, and I wonder, but again, like Jesus told his disciples, it's not your business to know the end times and just do what I told you to do. Don't worry about it. God's in control, and that's sometimes that's an unsatisfying answer. Yet that is the real answer. God is in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to have to be enough.
That's enough.
I choose to be satisfied that God is in control, which means nobody else is.
Right. Yeah. Let's end it with that.